"What is that dog doing in the East Wing again? That hallway's sealed for a reason." The nurse's voice cracked across the corridor like a snapped wire. Her clipboard clattered to the floor as she rounded the corner and found the golden retriever standing motionless in front of the boarded-up door, tail low, eyes fixed on a spot no one else had looked at in years. Copper didn't flinch. His body leaned slightly forward, as if he could hear something behind the wall that no human could. Noah Rivera, the nursing home's newest evening care coordinator, arrived seconds later, breathless and confused. "He's a therapy dog. He doesn't just wander," he said, crouching beside Copper, but the dog wouldn't move. He was trembling not with fear, but with focus. Nose low, ears taut, paw gently scratching at the base of the wall like he was tracing something hidden beneath it. The hallway had been closed for nearly 12 years. Rumors floated around the staff lounge, but none were ever confirmed. Structural issues, they said. Mold, renovation, freeze. But every door in the East Wing had been sealed with thick planks, and this particular one, room E17, had a faded heart sticker still clinging to the upper corner. No one had noticed that before, or perhaps no one wanted to. That night, after the staff had left and the residents were asleep, Noah returned to the hallway with Copper. He brought a flashlight, gloves, and a crowbar he had found in the janitor's closet. The silence in the corridor was different now, heavier, like the air itself had memory. When he pried open the wooden planks, dust erupted like ash from a sealed tomb behind the boards. A second door appeared, dulled, scratched, and faintly marked with crayon. When Noah opened it, Copper stepped in first. The room was small and windowless, its wallpaper peeling in long curled strips. A child's cat rested in the corner, its mattress sunken, stuffed animal crumpled at its foot. On the opposite wall, scrawled in faded red crayon, were 5 desperate words: "Please don't forget me." Noah froze. His flashlight trembled as he scanned the room. Fingerprints on the wall, a broken toy piano on the floor, and in the corner, a worn medical ID bracelet with no name, just a number. Copper lay down next to the cot and whimpered softly. Something had happened here, not a renovation, not mold, something someone had tried to bury. And Copper, after all these years, had remembered. The room was freezing, not from temperature, but from something deeper, an emotional cold that seeped into Noah's bones the longer he stood there. The cot hadn't been used in years, yet the blanket was still tucked at the corners, like someone had made the bed one last time before leaving in silence. Noah knelt beside the broken toy piano, brushing away layers of dust. A few keys still clinked under his fingers, the broken notes echoing through the empty space like unfinished lullabies. Copper didn't move. His eyes remained locked on the wall with the crayon message, "Please don't forget me." That one line made Noah feel like an intruder in someone's pain, and yet, it was Copper who had remembered what everyone else had pushed away. The question that pressed hardest wasn't what had happened here, it was who had been locked away behind a sealed hallway in a nursing home that never documented children. Noah pulled out his phone and snapped pictures. The bracelet, the wall, the cot. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but something told him it had to be recorded. When he stepped back into the hallway, the door creaked behind him, not loud, but enough to make his skin crawl. The space felt alive now, like it had been holding its breath all this time, waiting for someone to finally listen. Back in the main wing, he cornered Eleanor, one of the oldest residents, a retired schoolteacher who rarely spoke but never missed. A detail: she had been at Briarview longer than most of the staff. When Noah showed her the photo of the crayon wall, her hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes didn't fill with confusion, but with recognition. "You found her room," she whispered. "Who room?" Noah asked gently, trying not to push too hard. She hesitated. "They called her Maya. She was different, small for her age, didn't talk much, but she'd hum to herself all day. They said she had no family. I don't know if that was true." Her hand shook as she reached for the photo again. She disappeared during the flood. Everyone thought she'd been relocated to a hospital, but no one ever saw her again. There was a flood. Noah's voice tightened. 2013. Heavy rain collapsed part of the foundation on the east side. The wing was shut down that week. They said the records were lost in the water damage, but Maya hadn't been relocated. She had been buried beneath bureaucracy, sealed in a hallway no one dared to reopen. Noah couldn't shake the image of her tiny world: a cot, a wall, and a broken piano cut off from life while the rest of the home moved on. That night, he sat in his office long after the others had gone. The bracelet was in a bag now, resting beside a manila folder that had been gathering dust in the back of the file room. The folder had no name, just a number, matching the one on the bracelet. Inside were incomplete forms, missing signatures, and a single intake photo, a girl no older than 7 with dark eyes and a distant expression. The photo was creased and water-stained, but one thing stood out: Copper was in it, sitting beside her. He hadn't just found the room. He had known her. Noah looked at the dog lying near his feet, peaceful now, no longer fixated on that door. Something about the way Copper had led him there stayed by the cot, and then remained silent afterward. It wasn't just instinct, it was memory and guilt. Somewhere along the line, this dog had been the only one who hadn't forgotten her. And now, with a sealed room cracked open, The truth had started to whisper through the cracks, but Noah knew that wasn't enough. If Briarview had hidden this once, it could do it again, and this time someone had to speak. Noah didn't sleep that night. The image of Maya's face from the intake photo haunted him, those hollow, unblinking eyes, and the way her small shoulders curled slightly inward, as if she had already accepted being unseen. By morning he had printed out everything: photos of the room, the bracelet, the intake file. He organized the pages meticulously, like presenting evidence to a jury, because deep down he knew that's exactly what it would feel like. But when he brought the folder to the director's office, the reaction was colder than he expected. Miss Darlene Mercer, the long-standing administrator of Briarview, listened quietly, her expression unreadable. She skimmed through the documents with thinly veiled disinterest, nodding occasionally but saying nothing. When he finished, she closed the folder with a soft snap. "There is no record of a child named Maya Lin ever being admitted here. These files aren't official, and that wing has been closed since the flood. I suggest you focus on your assigned duties, Mr. Rivera." "You saw the bracelet," Noah said, trying to keep his voice from shaking. "The file number matches. The dog Copper, he knew her. This isn't just mold and water damage. A child lived and died back there." Ms. Mercer stood slowly. "You have a bright future in nursing care, Noah. Don't let curiosity blur your professionalism. Some things are better left in the past." It wasn't a denial, it was a warning. That afternoon, Copper was missing. Noah searched every hallway, every garden path, calling his name, checking with residents who might have seen him, but nothing. Finally, behind the building's loading dock, he found the golden retriever tied to a post in the rain. His vest had been removed, and a laminated tag lay on the ground beside him. "No longer active therapy animal." Noah crouched beside him, heart pounding. "They're covering it up," he whispered. "They're going to erase everything again." Copper nudged his hand and whined. That evening, Noah typed out a full anonymous report: photos, documentation, timeline, the dog's behavior, the director's reaction, everything. He sent it to the State Department of Eldercare, and then to a local journalist who had covered patient neglect cases in the past. He didn't sign his name, but he left one sentence at the end that felt like a confession. The dog remembered what everyone else tried to forget. 2 days later, the home was quiet. A stillness hung in the air, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that precedes change. An unmarked car arrived early in the morning and parked out front for hours. Noah watched through the blinds as 2 officials, with clipboards, entered the building and were directed by a red-faced Ms. Mercer toward her office. They never made it there. One of them stopped at the east hallway instead. Copper, now back at Noah's side, sat quietly as the investigators paused in front of the sealed door. The crayon marks were still faintly visible through the dust, and the air seemed to hold its breath again. That night, Noah received a single untraceable message in his inbox. No greeting, no signature, just a file. When he opened it, he found scanned handwritten pages, a journal of sorts. The first page was dated 2013 and written in a child's script. "They forgot me again today, but Goldie didn't." Everything began to unravel from there. But it wouldn't unravel quietly, and neither would the truth about Maya Lin. The journal pages changed everything. There were 12 in total, each written on scraps of faded construction paper. Some smudged with age, others clearly dampened at the edges. But each one offered a chilling glimpse into a life the nursing home had buried, day after day of a child left isolated, unnoticed and unheard. The entries were repetitive at times, heartbreakingly simple. "It's cold again. Goldie brought me my blanket. They forgot breakfast. I made a song for the piano. Goldie stayed with me when I was scared." Noah couldn't shake the realization. Goldie, Maya's name for Copper, had likely been her assigned therapy dog over a decade ago. Dogs in such programs often bonded deeply with patients, especially children. He had remained loyal even after the rest of the world moved on. And now, years later, that bond had pulled her story back from the grave. When state investigators returned 2 days later with forensic teams and archivists, the sealed room was fully documented. The toy piano was carefully removed. Soil samples were taken. A small brittle bone fragment discovered beneath a loose floorboard sent a chill through everyone present. The home staff watched from the windows, their faces pale, while Ms. Mercer was escorted to her office under the supervision of 2 officials. No one said she was under arrest, but everyone knew something was coming. Inside the walls of Briarview, whispers began. Eleanor wasn't the only resident who remembered Maya, just the only one brave enough to speak. A retired custodian named Bert finally admitted he had cleaned the East Wing during the flood. He recalled seeing a young girl's shoes left outside a room, wet but carefully placed. "I asked if anyone had checked that wing before they shut it," he said. "They told me to leave it, said the county would handle it. They never did." Noah had never intended to be the center of anything. He wasn't an activist or a journalist, but now he was the only person standing between truth and silence. He was interviewed for hours by state officials, reporters, even an attorney from a child advocacy group. He answered everything honestly, and when asked why he had reopened the hallway at all, he said only one thing: the dog wouldn't move. That simple sentence became the headline across local news outlets. The dog that remembered. Photos of Copper sitting beside Maya's cat were published with blurred backgrounds and raw headlines. The public response was immediate: grief, disbelief. People wanted answers, and they wanted accountability. A civil suit was filed against Briarview's administration. New leadership was appointed within a week. Ms. Mercer quietly resigned before she could be formally charged, though whispers of criminal negligence lingered. But the most powerful ripple came not from lawsuits or news segments, but from a quiet ceremony held just behind the nursing home near the gardens. A memorial plaque was placed beneath a tree in memory of Maya Lin. You were not forgotten. Below it, etched in soft script, were 5 simple words from her crayon wall: please don't forget me. Copper sat beside it, tail curled around his paws, watching the wind pass through the leaves. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He just stayed, as if making sure no one ever forgot again. The storm that followed, Maya's story, didn't just shake Briarview, it spread like a quiet reckoning through the elder care system statewide. Policies were questioned, oversight committees formed, and a long-forgotten registry of vulnerable minors in institutional care was reopened and audited. But for Noah, none of the headlines, interviews, or policy changes could erase the memory of that dark, narrow hallway where it all began. He returned there one final time, this time not alone. It had been 2 weeks since the memorial. The garden plaque had begun drawing quiet visitors, local families, nursing students, even staff members from nearby homes who had seen the story and wanted to pay their respects. But today was different. Noah brought a small wooden box, hand-carved and polished, with Maya's name etched on top. Inside were the preserved journal pages, a laminated photo of her sitting beside Copper, and a letter Noah had written in the sleepless hours after the truth came out. He placed the box beneath the plaque, not as a legal archive, but as a human one, a time capsule of pain, loyalty, and the voice of a child who was silenced for far too long. He stayed there for a while, Copper resting quietly beside him. The dog was older now, slower, with more gray around his muzzle than gold. But in his eyes, the alertness had returned. The restless worry was gone, as if he, too, knew Maya's story had finally been heard. Noah reached down and stroked behind his ear. You did it, buddy. You kept her alive. In the months that followed, Copper became something of a quiet legend. Children from the local school brought him treats. Families dropped by to see the dog who remembered. But what struck Noah most was how many people stopped to tell their own stories of relatives lost in care, of files misplaced, of voices ignored. Maya's case had cracked open more than one sealed door. One day an older woman approached the memorial with her granddaughter. She stood silently for a long time before turning to Noah, who had been tending the garden beds. I was a nurse once, she said softly. We didn't always ask the right questions. Sometimes we were told not to. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked down at the plaque. But this makes it harder to forget. Noah nodded. That's the point. On Copper's final day, peaceful quiet. Just after sunrise, Noah sat beside him in the same garden where the truth had taken root. He buried him near the tree, just a few feet from Maya's plaque. A small stone was placed above his grave, reading Goldie, guardian, witness, friend. The home changed after that. Walls were painted, staff turned over, new protocols were put in place. But most of all, a new culture grew in where silence was no longer accepted as protocol, and curiosity wasn't punished. But encouraged. Noah remained at Briarview, eventually becoming its director. But no matter how many roles he held or how many years passed, he never walked the halls without glancing once toward that east wing. He didn't do it out of fear or guilt, but to remind himself that stories like Maya's begin in the quiet, in the ignored, in the forgotten. And if someone, anyone, chooses to remember, everything can change. Because sometimes, it's not the loudest voice that uncovers the truth, it's the one that never gave up barking.